Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with a Screenwriter's Rant on Book of Love from Prime Video. It's about an author who writes a book and then it gets translated into Spanish and it becomes a huge hit in Mexico. Pretty interesting premise for a romance movie, and I don't say that lightly. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. Links in the description. Including my books, The Pineys, Comedy Horror in South Jersey. Now, this is his translator for the publisher, and he is sort of a stuffy English author, but a younger guy, handsome enough to be in this movie. And when he gets down to Mexico, what he finds out is she rewrote the book. He wrote this book, this sort of dry book on love, but she rewrote it as this hot romance book. And basically she said rewrote the boring parts because she was translating it, and it's a huge hit now, right? Like, the book wasn't going to go anywhere, but thanks to her, it's like this mega hit in Mexico. And so he's going down there to promote it, but he finds out, oh man, she put all these steaming things in it. So now they're kind of stuck with each other because the publisher's like, well, we're making a lot of money here, so, you want your money, you're going to have to go along with this ruse. Which I think is a pretty funny premise. So, and of course, he ends up falling in love with her. She has a kid, and she's got kind of a rough life, and she wants to be a writer, and, she's just struggling, and he's got all the fame now and taking credit for her work. But during the course of the movie, they kind of fall in love. And, he realizes that he didn't really know much about love. He hadn't been in love, and she, had real passion. And so they kind of get together. And it's kind of a funny premise. Now, maybe it's just because I'm a writer and I kind of know publishing. But I think it's very clever, right? It's called Book of Love, obviously, because they write books. February 4th. It sounds like a good premise to me. Valentine's Day type movie. And it sounds funny too, right? Because it's like, that's kind of, you could see that happening, right? In the translation, and a book that nobody really cared about suddenly becomes a hit somewhere. I mean, maybe it's because I know publishing a little better that I could totally see that happening. It could absolutely happen, right? Because if you don't speak Spanish and somebody translates your book, you don't know that they translated it wrong. And if it's not a big hit to begin with, then who cares? Right? It's only when it becomes a hit that he realizes, wait a minute. So this is cool. So the first act is he realizes his book's a hit in Mexico for some reason, and his publisher says, you got to go to Mexico. We're making millions of dollars or whatever, so go down there and do a big thing. And he gets there, and this actually happens, by the way. I'll give you an example in the world of comic books. One of the biggest comic books, and this was back in the 90s, I don't know if this is true today, but Gladstone used to do, they were a comic book company that used to reprint Donald Duck. And they would print it in German for the German fans. And Donald Duck was massive in Germany. The Donald Duck comic book, just absolutely a monster hit in Germany. This is back in the 90s. And I think she was one of the inkers of the book. And I asked her what she did, and I inked Donald Duck. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I asked her, like, is that big? She said, oh, yeah, in Germany it's huge. It sells millions of copies. And, like, even in the 90s, when comic books were doing pretty decently here, it rarely would you hit 1 million. But regularly, Donald Duck would sell in the millions, plural, in Germany, just in Germany. And so when she went overseas to do a comic book convention, she did a comic book convention that I was in, and she was treated basically like me, even though she had a pretty decent credit. Donald Duck is still pretty big here. But in Germany, she was treated almost like a major celebrity. And this is the same for a few comic books. In Spain, for example, I think it was Peter David wrote an article about how he was treated like a major celebrity there. So much so that when he left his hotel, he got mobbed by fans on the street. They knew who he was. And you probably wouldn't recognize Peter David from any other guy on the street unless you happen to be a comic book person. So this isn't totally out of the realm of possibility that in other countries, I mean, it could happen to me tomorrow. The Pineys could become the biggest thing in Japan, and I'd be like, what? And then I could go to Japan and find out, the Japanese translator rewrote my book somehow. But this is cool. So the first act, he goes down to Mexico, and then he meets the girl, and of course they don't get along. She's, he's trying to figure out things like, why is this happening? And slowly over a period of time, he realizes that it's her, or she confesses, while at the same time he gets to know her, maybe he likes her, and they start to form a bond and a relationship. Yeah, see, at first they don't like each other. And then he gets to know her. She has a kid, she has a life, she wants to be a writer, and he helps her become a writer. She helps him to live life, and they fall in love, and they put out books together, or he helps her, and, So, totally solid premise. Good screenwriting here. And look, there are some things that women are probably better at, and one of them would be writing romances for women. And, and there's nothing wrong with doing a movie about that. Just like there's nothing wrong about doing a movie about what men are good at. So, I don't hear men like complaining, oh, this isn't fair. You're making it look like men can't write romances. Women are actually probably better at it because they kind of live in that world. They kind of live in the world of relationships and romance, and it's something they grow up with and think about way more often than men. Just like men think more about action, which is why men, I think, tend to be, I'm better at writing action and dialogue. Like things happen in my books. In books like this, things happen, but it's more about people talking about things happening and feelings and stuff like that. And that's more of a female-centric kind of book, right? Nothing wrong with that. So I think this is a solid entry, ladies, because it's probably aimed at you. If you're going to watch a romance movie, I would put this on the top of the list. This premise is so strong, I'll give it a rare upvote. There you go. Look at that. And that's it. And that's it for the Book of Love. This is Tony D saying check me out on Bitchute and Rumble, because recently YouTube flagged one of my videos. I had to delete it, so enjoy me while you can. So make sure you get on Bitchute and Rumble if you haven't already. We got a news blast and a huge Hollywoke hot take. See ya in the next one.